Welcome, everyone. My name is Seth Polachicchio, and I'm honored to be the chair of Catholic Social Services Board of Directors and your MC for our 2022-2023 annual public meeting. Today, I join you from Northwest Edmonton, located on the beautiful lands of Treaty 6 territory. I thank you for joining us as we look back and celebrate some of our highlights and accomplishments from the past year. Our agency's Catholic mission of caring for and bringing hope to people in need reminds us to see every person we encounter as a gift who is worthy of acceptance, respect, and love. And it is in that spirit that we begin our program today with our agency prayer. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. All-loving God, we give thanks for your presence with all you struggle. The person with a developmental disability who receives your touch, the woman and her child facing abuse, the refugee building a new life, the parolee yearning to begin again, the youth crying out for hope, the dad who needs a listening ear, the mom caring for her newborn, the senior longing for connection, the foster parents who open their hearts, and all those who whisper for their wounds to be healed. May we be your instrument of humility, compassion, and respect as we answer your call to serve. Amen. This past year has continued to see heavy demands for the social services we provide. Whether it is refugee resettlement, supports for abused women seeking shelter, people with developmental disabilities looking for a place to call home, a surge in people requesting mental health counseling, or children and youth living at risk. These individuals and thousands more like them are reaching out to CSS for help more than ever before. There is no one cause, but international war and conflict, the challenging economic situation, an increase in addictions and substance misuse, alongside a wide variety of other increased stressors in people's everyday lives, have been making living harder for many of our fellow residents of this great province. CSS has a distinguished 62-year history of being there for those who needed us. We are guided by the gospel mission to love our neighbor, regardless of their culture, color, or creed, and to do this in a manner that is always guided by our agency's three core values of humility, compassion, and respect. In this way, we were honored to serve more than 20,000 people last year, spread across 11 different communities throughout central Alberta, including Innisfail, Camrose, Wetaskiwin, Wainwright, Lloydminster, Red Deer, Edmonton, and several others. With so many different programs in so many different communities, it is impossible to share with you all the services we have provided in the short time we have together this afternoon. But I would like to now invite our Chief Executive Officer, Dr. Troy Davies, who is currently in his 6th year as our CEO, to share a sampling of statistics and stories that help paint a picture of how Catholic Social Services has made a positive difference in the lives of so many this past year. Troy?
Thank you, Seth. I too want to thank everyone for taking the time out of your busy day to come together and be with us this afternoon. Together, our favorite place to be. That's the theme of this year's annual public meeting and our annual report. Together, we can take stock of our past and find ways to improve the future. Together, we can take on monumental projects that seem daunting at first and then bring them to fruition. Together, we can do our best work for the people that we serve, and together, we can realize our highest goals. Our agency has and will continue to do great things. And while some of our programs might serve thousands of people a year, like our English language assessment program in our Immigration and Settlement Services area, other programs might only serve a handful of folks, such as our Seniors Connect program in Lloydminster. But either way, Whether it's a group of thousands or a group you can fit into a community kitchen, in some exceptional way, CSS touches the lives of each person it encounters and makes it better than it was. I think of Ashley, a single mom who was unsure of where to turn to find the help she needed. For years, Ashley had only known a life of self-sufficient and isolated camp living, living directly off the land. She didn't know how to pay bills, didn't understand government systems, and in fact, didn't even know how to register and license her vehicle. From her perspective, when she left her secluded remote setting and made the move to urban life, it was like moving to an entirely new country. For her, it was truly culture shock. Lost, overwhelmed, stressed by the many new challenges she faced, Ashley managed to find Catholic Social Services. Staff in our St. Zita program, a donor-funded program which provides immediate material and emotional support for those in dire circumstances, met Ashley where she was. She was only one of the 1,015 people that St. Zita's served in Edmonton, Wetaskiwin, and Red Deer last year. They first helped Ashley get the basics in place. We facilitated getting her car registered and licensed. We provided her a gas card, aided her in setting up a bank account, and provided her assistance with the setup of a phone to receive calls and a feeling of connection. She was then introduced to the city's programs and services to help her learn about the assistance that was available to her. The results of these small but serious acts of support helped Ashley to once again feel in control of her life. Today, Ashley is thriving, but says it's because she was able to do it together with CSS, who was there to help her when she needed it most. Our Morning Star program in Red Deer is another offering of CSS that is representative of how our agency is there for people, always without judgment, in their time of need. Morning Star is a refuge for homeless and vulnerable women who are warmly welcomed by Jill and her small but mighty team. It provides a safe place where these at-risk ladies can have a bite to eat, a shower, a place to wash their clothes, access to feminine hygiene products, and a locker to store what few belongings they have. They're made to feel that they're not walking their difficult road in life alone. They're doing it together with the team at CSS who cares for them. Morning Star provides these women with referrals, with clothing, with conversation, with connection, and even with cozy pajamas while they wait for their laundry to dry. You know, many of us take for granted, but maybe just being able to have a simple shower, clean clothing to wear, and a secure locker to put the single photograph you possess of your child can remind a person of their inherent dignity, and it can return them to themselves. It's truly a transformative and beautiful thing. This month, Morning Star is celebrating its 4th year since being established as a new CSS program, and it has served 503 different women since first opening its doors. Like St. Zita, it relies completely on donor support. Without the generous giving of regular Albertans, Morning Star quite simply would not exist. So thank you for that support. We know we'll be able to continue to rely on you so we can continue to do this important work together. CSS has always been characterized by a spirit of welcome and hospitality. Scripture reminds us that we are to welcome the stranger. It's what we're called to do, and our agency takes that gospel imperative to heart. To do this, we do this in an especially profound way in the resettlement services we provide to Canadian newcomers each year. CSS was a key coordinating agency for the Ukrainian relief efforts in both Edmonton and in Red Deer, working closely and in partnership with many other settlement agencies, community organizations, churches, and volunteers to assist 3,400 Ukrainian people establish a new life here. We've also helped settle over 1,000 Afghan refugees, as well as many others from Syria, other parts of Asia, Africa, and the rest of the world last year. Much of the work that we do with these people is with government-assisted refugees, and we are enabled to do it with the assistance of our valuable partners at Immigration, Refugee and Citizenship Canada. But we also work with other partners, such as the Archdiocese of Edmonton, to help facilitate privately sponsored arrivals, including 185 such cases in 2022 and 183 so far this year in 2023. Our volunteers are special to us, and volunteering with CSS can often involve a long-term commitment. One of our volunteers, who serves in our Newcomers Cultural Links matching program, lives in the community next to one of the hotels used by CSS to temporarily house refugees when our reception house apartment complex reaches its capacity. She reached out to us to offer us a vacant community garden plot. She had noticed many new arrivals in our RAP, or Resettlement Assistance Program, who had been housed in these hotels for the summer and who had been visiting the garden and enjoyed learning about it. The garden plot is conveniently located just a short walking distance from the hotels, next to a brand new playground. This opportunity presented multiple benefits, and soon the CSS Refugee Gardening Program was born, operating 3 days a week. Clients said they were thrilled to touch the earth and to till the land. They enjoyed watering the plot, learning about the short growing season, and studying the different plant life that we have here in Western Canada and how to grow these edible items, all while making friendships, engaging with the community, and learning about the new place they call home, a place in which we're all together. A significant theme that people soon detect as they get to know our agency is the importance that we place on having a community of people who support you along your life's journey. Dawn's story is one example that shines a light on this piece of the CSS picture. Dawn is a young adult who lives with an intellectual disability and experienced significant trauma in the early stages of her life. It resulted in her suffering from extreme anxiety, to the point where mere thoughts of leaving the house or entering into crowds without a family member present with her was considered terrifying. Dawn was introduced to our supported independent living program. Among other supports, a CSS outreach worker was assigned to her to help her with her all-consuming anxiety. But Dawn was reluctant to accept the support, refusing to attend any meeting without her mom also present. In time, however, the outreach worker gained Dawn's trust, and slowly we were able to build up her confidence and her independence. Little by little, she made progress, eventually feeling self-assured enough to take the bus all by herself and go to a park or strip mall all on her own for short periods of time. It was a truly remarkable change. Someone who was no longer incapacitated by anxiety. It was like getting her life back. And in many ways, Dawn was a new creation. Dawn now accesses the community on a regular basis with her newfound independence and is able to look forward to getting together with the new friends she has made. It's a great place for her to be. There's so many other stories that could be told, stories that are truly sacred because they represent the intricate and often difficult layers of life lived by the most vulnerable brothers and sisters here in Alberta. They're the stories of the 34 brave young people served by our Safe House last year, seeking protection from a dangerous life of cruelty and sexual exploitation on the streets. There are the stories of the 79 amazing CSS foster parents who lovingly open their homes to a child who does not have one. There are the personal histories of the 407 abused seniors served by our Elder Abuse and Resource Supports program last year, as well as the distressing accounts of the 70 women and children served at LaSalle, our second stage women's shelter, and the 302 women and children served at Lorena, our first stage shelter. Shelters in which moms and their children can celebrate Christmas and birthdays and other special occasions without fear, safely, together. And then there are the stories of the 270 people assisted by our CSS by our inspiring fetal alcohol spectrum disorder program, Not to mention the 353 clients served at Mercy Counseling, our psychological services clinic, and the nearly 100 young mothers we work with each month at our Gianna Pregnancy Center. Likewise, we know that there's surely a hard story behind each of the lives of the 56 formerly homeless people we served last year in our Welcome Home program, as much as there is a complex story behind the 108 male and female parolees, each who stayed an average of 6 months in one of our 4 Elpida halfway houses, as they strive to make a successful transition back into society as productive citizens. Yes, there are many stories to tell from last year, and we are grateful that these stories endure. But none of them would be possible without the financial support of our partners and our funders, to whom I want to extend a very heartfelt thank you. Thank you to the Government of Alberta and the Government of Canada, who constitute our 2 largest funders and account for 76.8% and 11.9% of last year's revenue, respectively. The remaining 11.3% is made up of funding from other provincial and territorial governments, various municipal orders of government, granting foundations, and of course, our dear and dedicated donors who prove loyal year in and year out. It is these resources that enable us to do the work that needs doing. We are grateful. Together, you, our many funders and benefactors, have made possible the work of an agency with an annual operating budget of $117 million, which represents an 11.1% increase from last year and a 15.1% increase compared to 2 years ago. Clearly, CSS is growing and momentum is on our side. At CSS, we have a solid track record of being able to deliver. Thank you to all of our funders and our partners for your trust and your continued confidence in us to get the job done. I'm already looking forward to next year's annual public meeting, when I can share news of some really exciting things that have been occurring in the agency this past year. Things like our digital transformation project, our reaccreditation journey, our brand new supportive family living program in Saskatchewan, our ever-growing Evening at the Mac community get-together, our new strategic plan, and our ongoing truth and reconciliation journey. But I best not get ahead of myself. Those stories will have to wait until next year, when we can once again get together, our favorite place to be. Blessings to all of you as we head into this winter season. Set.
Thank you, Troy, for sharing the portrait of the agency. The story of the work we do is truly an inspiration to all. And on behalf of the entire board of directors, we thank Troy, as well as the entire staff of 2,000 dedicated and mission-driven employees who make up our agency. We look forward to our doing more great things and work together in the future. As Troy mentioned, CSS recently developed its own Truth and Reconciliation Action Plan. And as part of this plan includes greater listening to the voices of our Aboriginal peoples and communities. With this in mind, I'm delighted to welcome our final speaker for this afternoon. Our guest address this year will be delivered by Métis elder and knowledge keeper Arthur Cunningham. Mr. Cunningham is a retired Indigenous relations practitioner with over 35 years of experience in the business sector. He spent his career building positive relationships with over 150 Indigenous communities in Canada and 40 tribal communities in the United States. Arthur is a father of 4, grandfather of 7, great-grandfather of 2, and he still finds time to serve as an advisor and board member of numerous nonprofit organizations, including the Circle for Aboriginal Relations, the Calgary Friendship Center, Calgary Children and Family Services Authority, and Métis Calgary Family Services, to name a few. In 1997, he received the prestigious Chief Crowchild Memorial Award for building bridges of understanding between Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people. In 2005, Mr. Cunningham received the Alberta Centennial Medal for outstanding service to the people and province of Alberta. And in 2006, the Métis Nation of Alberta Region 3 formally recognized Art for his success in the corporate world. Here to talk to us about the importance of Indigenous relations, it is my honor to introduce Mr. Arthur Cunningham.
Good day. My name's Art Cunningham. I'm an elder and knowledge keeper from the Métis Nation of Alberta, but also spent many years, 39 years actually, as a Native or Aboriginal liaison, Indigenous liaison nowadays in the resource sector, but also made that learning, passed it on to the time I spent with Children and Family Services for 10 years as the Aboriginal co-chair for Calgary and area regions. I just want to speak to my experience and my journey through building a relationship with Indigenous peoples. Actually, I started in an era which I call where Indigenous people were invisible, and that was prior to 1990. And it was only on the vision of Bob Blair, CEO of Nova. And it was his vision that carried us to start building relationship with Indigenous people from employment to contracting exactly. But in 1990, the world changed for us in the resource sector, but also I think the change for Canada in its relationship with an understanding of Indigenous people. Court cases directed us to start engaging and focusing on working with Indigenous people and identifying the impacts of our activity, which also changed the profile with other sectors, for example. Now, the resource sector is what I was involved with, and we learned very quickly that we couldn't rely on the courts for certainty, and we couldn't rely on regulators for certainty, that we had to invest in a relationship with Indigenous people to provide a level of certainty going forward. Unfortunately, my experience that back then, the other sectors in our society, education sector, social sector, public sector, and that, still weren't investing the same amount of effort and fiscal investments into these relationships with Indigenous people. They were quite ways behind. But through our experience and our learning in the court cases, and primarily the profile of Indigenous people started to change in Canada just after 1990, and which spurred a lot more recognition and investment into the relationship with its Indigenous people. Primarily, I want to speak to the social sector. When I was with Children Family Services, there was very few investment by major organizations that serve children and families around Indigenous issues. Even the Faculty of Social Work had very little, if any, training around Indigenous people and families and interacting back then. And part of our learnings from the resource sector, we are able to influence and challenge, actually, Faculty of Social Work and also the organizations that served our children and families around investing in Indigenous people. The government also invested in those relationships. And it was through that time, I believe that, and the motivation was the investment with the social sectors of our society. Be quite honest with you, the resource sector was not the best sector to lead its relationship building with Indigenous people of Canada. Our focus was, of course, project or energy development, and but again, we had to take those steps because the courts had directed us to lead that, or the courts had directed the federal government, who carried the ultimate relationship, but then they passed on that responsibility to the resource sector. So we had to carry that ball and learn how to have the effective relationships to be able to move forward and provide certainty with our project development. And it's through that learning, changed the profile of Indigenous people in Canada. They started making headlines and started influencing our economy somewhat. And so I think it drew attention to them. And I think Canadians were asking a lot more questions like, well, who are these people? We've never learned about them. They were foreign to us. When they were invisible, I think the profile of Canadians was one of portrayed by Hollywood, and the other one was portrayed on what I call, and it was universal in Canada, the kitchen table profile, where a family would sit down and somebody make a comment and say, "Listen, I seen Indian today," and the feedback to that was, "Well, they're dirty, they're drunk, etc." All the stereotypical descriptions back then, negative descriptions of Indian people, and that's what our generations grew up understanding about these Indigenous people, because again, they were not educated, they're not given any opportunity through our education sector to understand who these Indigenous people were. And so it's hard for them to draw an accurate profile. So I believe that was one of the issues that was dealing with a lot of Canadians around their profile of Indian people. And that's what I learned quite quickly from our sector and working relationship with the Indigenous people. And we were very successful in many areas and planting a lot of seeds about what is effective relationship building and how to have inclusive policies and programs. And we started to see social sector starting making those investments, but even further that we started seeing the public sector, the government, start providing available resources for these organizations to invest in their Indigenous knowledge capacity so that they could better serve children and family services. I remember sitting with the union reps of all the social workers in Alberta here, and we talked about the redesign of children and family services. Well, they were quite negative to that whole process. But I looked around the table, and as we went around table description of each other, I found that there's only two of us who are Indigenous, and that was two co-chairs that were sitting there. And I made the comment that, the children and families you serve are over 50% of the people you serve in your organizations, and yet there's no Indigenous people here with presenting their perspective, their wisdom, or whatever their knowledge around their own families. And I found that quite disappointing and, again, challenging, because at that time we were in the resource sector, we were required to have that inclusion commitments into our communities as far as so we could move forward with our project. And I was quite baffled why the social sector did not have that same requirement expectation. So it has grown and it's changed through the investment, and it really is. It's just a straight investment in building the capacity and knowledge to be able to serve Indigenous families and children a lot more effectively. But that has been the change, and I believe that change has happened. Unfortunately, I believe because our federal government and our provincial governments have decided to build a relationship with Indigenous people through the courts, rather than making that investment, as the resource sector has, in building relationships effectively. It really causes what I think the predicament that we're in today, and we're still learning how to properly invest in our own Indigenous knowledge capacity as we move forward. And I think we are in truly a reconciliation time. We're starting to do business a lot better. Thank you.
Thank you, Elder Cunningham, for that excellent address and for taking the time to be with Catholic Social Services today. You have gifted us with wisdom, insight, and experience, and for that we are grateful. This brings our 2022-2023 annual public meeting to a close. We are so happy you took the opportunity to join us wherever in Alberta or Canada you may be logging in from. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, we invite you to send them to communications@cssalberta.ca. Until we see you again next year, take good care and God bless.